And then, and it's WEA, our local association, they wanted the last 2 years monthly expenditures. And so she put all those, they wanted not only these documents, but they wanted all the expenditures. So each of those are about 70 pages.
Next
So
victim.
Okay,
Next victim.
right. That's a lot.
that's public record. That's on there. I think they just wanted to back.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you guys can join me for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Pioneer School District is to educate each student to the highest levels of academic achievement and prepare students to succeed in life. The vision of the Pioneer School District is high levels of learning for all, every child, every day. Up first, we have any requests to address the board? Yes. I don't mind. Yeah, this is the, yes, please speak into the podium, into the microphone.
No, I tried online and the link would not let me register.
Oh, okay, we'll take a look at that. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. The board.
Probably me.
No worries. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings, and will allow 3 minutes per person for public comment. Any examples of uncivil comments include comments that are libelous or slanderous, unwarranted invasion of privacy, obscene or indecent pursuant to the Federal Communications Act, or any rule of the regulation of the Federal Communications Commission, violate school district policy or procedure related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination, or incite an unlawful act on school premises or violate a lawful school regulation. The podium is yours.
Right, so as you guys know, I've asked questions a couple times about the land,
Yes.
selling of the land. And I had some concerns that it's not a public is not involved in the decision. And I have an email dated August of 2024 from the superintendent that says the board cannot sell property without a vote of the public, even if it was purchased by a vote of the public. Okay, so I did ask and I was told that school board decision. Okay, I don't personally care whether you sell land or not. Don't care. But I don't think the public should not be informed, if that makes sense. Okay, and I don't know what the plans are.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. I just can't hear you. Sorry.
I can do that.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I could hear what you were saying.
Is that one of my 3 minutes?
No, you're good.
Okay, so I noticed on June 11th of 2024 special meeting minutes said that you guys were going to discuss the land purchase, and you took it to an executive session because the law allows you to do that if you're concerned that it might affect the price of the sale or the purchase. Okay, so you did that in June, and then in September was a special session, and this is the one I was out for surgery. And then it says school property update, but there are no special session notes. And I've been working, and you've been working really hard to help me find notes, but I can't find any special session notes on any year. I did notice that the RCW says that meeting minutes are required for all regular and special, and I don't know what that means because I'm not smart enough, but I couldn't find the notes to get smart. Okay, so what I found doing this much research, and I know nothing, so I'm going to paraphrase. I know nothing. Okay, there was a court case, Attorney General's office, where a school district was sued for selling land, and the land was sold without the public being given some consideration. This was way back in the 50s, but it's still on case law, and it was only $20,000. Okay, so now I found the RCW today. I have a copy, and the RCW says that the board of directors of any school district of the state may sell for cash at public or private sale and condemn by deed any interest in land and purchase anything when the board of directors determines that it's appropriate. But if the value is over $70,000, you're required to notify the public. and it gives me directions on what that means. So, I don't know what it means, quite honestly. But I have a copy of the RCW I was reading.
Thank you.
I only have one, I'm sorry. So I just want to tell you, my concern again is that I heard disgust, I guess, when you identified the land. In particular, people were against the high school. And that they had voted a high school down, so why are we keeping the land? Now, I don't know why you're keeping it. I personally think it's smart. I think you don't pay taxes on it that I know of. I think it's an investment. I think it's going to get bigger here in this district, whether you want it or not. PUD is planning for it. They're putting in new transformers out here because the land is expected to go up. And so I don't know why, but I think that there's a lot of smart people in our district that might collectively have an opinion, and we should maybe ask them, especially if it's illegal box. So that's it.
I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, thank
Is it
you.
okay to make a comment?
We can do comment.
So I will say that we have a facilities committee that had been engaged, and we have one member from the public. We actually had another one attempt to join us, I think.
My friend Melissa, but she works during the day.
Right.
Yes.
So, but my point in all this is the discussions in all of the properties were going on in that committee, and that included the public. So I don't know if you're saying that we have to have a formal vote or something like that.
Again, I'm not going to interpret the law. I'm gonna give it to you and say, hey, I think you're required to, especially when you look at the court case.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm also very important to me to not get sued.
Yeah.
Especially given
Us
that you know
too.
what I did for a living. That's very important to me.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, hey, let's
As
just
I.
be smart. If it requires me notify, then notify. If nobody shows up, nobody shows up. You've done your due diligence. That's all I'm asking is, hey, let's be smart.
Yeah.
And not end up wishing we had it later. So that's
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate you sharing and pointing out your concerns. You're okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, do we all have mics on? Towards the front. There we go. Are we good? Okay. Do we have any other comments? Nobody's up there? Okay. Any changes and or additions to the agenda?
No, not tonight.
And do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda?
I move that we approve the regular meeting agenda.
Thank you. And second?
A second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. That motion passes. Up next is approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. That motion passes as well. That takes us right up to principal reports.
Dynamic duo.
I know. All right. So we want to say yay that we are coming quickly to a nice long break for all of our staff. And it's exciting to be able to have that. They have been powering through, our kids have been powering through, and we are finally into that week where everything is a little bit of mad, joyous chaos, but we're here finally. And so it's a really good thing. And so we have different things going on in each building. We're doing dress up days, and we have a holiday fashion show at the middle school that we do. And you guys do something on what you guys do.
So we have cookie deck this Friday, if you want to come and decorate cookies with a kindergartner or a fifth grader. I'm sure it would be nice and not too messy for you.
Yeah.
They're very excited
Yeah.
because it's tied to our food drive.
Oh,
So they're very excited to have that party, and the food drive's going with you guys
Yes.
as well.
Yes,
The food
we are-
drive going.
Hoping to duct tape one of our teachers
Yes.
to the wall. And so actually we'll duct tape it up to a table and see how well that goes. That's awfully fun to do
Yeah.
for the students. So they enjoy that. Yeah. But yes, you are very welcome to attend our festivities at both buildings on Friday if you would like to. They kind of just go for an extended amount of time as we wish our kids a wonderful winter break away. But just because the year is ending doesn't mean that we aren't thinking ahead already. It's kind of in our nature to plan ahead and make sure that things are going well, even if everybody is just thinking about Friday. Amy and I are not. We're like, okay, this starts all up again. How are we going to be ready when kids come back in January? And so I have given all of you the bus contract and matrix of minors and majors. This is something that we sent out. Well, it started with, it went to Caleb and Amy and I and Jeff talked about holding our students to a certain level of accountability because there's been some pretty naughty behaviors that have been on our buses. And so through the use of our PBIS committees, we developed this bus contract. We do have parents who sit on the PBIS committee that meets over here at 7:30 in the morning once a month. And so I have 4 parents who do contribute as well. And we came up with this, and then we also came up with the bus matrix as well, the minors and the majors. And then that was sent out to every parent and guardian this last week for review to look at via Parent Square. And then in January, we are going to send out a Google form. I was going to send out paper copies, but we had a PBIS meeting again on Tuesday. Yeah, this morning. Wait, when was it? Yeah, this morning. This morning at 7:30 in the morning. We had another PBIS meeting, and it was brought up by one of our parents that a Google form would be a much better idea because they didn't have to want to rely on their child bringing a piece of paper home. And so that's a fantastic idea. Love it. So a Google form link will be sent out to all family members to have them sign via that Google form link instead. And that will happen in January. So I just wanted you to be able to look at this. So we've had a lot of input on this before it went out. And we have had many parents who have talked to Amy and I about the fact that they feel that at times the bus riding can be unsafe. And so this is really focused on making sure that students have accountability for their actions. And it is very clearly defined what a minor and a major look like, just as it is in each of our buildings as well. And then the drivers feel incredibly supported. And they feel like there is a cut and dried information as far as like this, everyone understands we're on the same page, which is really nice. Did you want to add anything to that at all? Or?
I did.
Okay.
First, I want to thank you to Trish and her PBIS team for creating this for us. But when I did talk to the bus drivers, I felt their shoulders relaxed. They had a plan. We have a plan, because that's one thing that we know. When we know, hey, we can look at this paper and go, okay, here's what we do next. It's not this guessing game that sometimes we do after making 1,000 decisions.
Yes.
And we're like, what do we do now? And then it doesn't seem consistent. So this just being consistent, and we're both saying the same thing. It just felt like when the drivers were relaxed, more things were relaxed just with the kids as well.
Yes, very much so. So this is one of the things. It's only a small component of the PBIS reteach that's going to happen in both of our buildings when we come back in January as well. We know that that is incredibly important, especially after an extended break. But January seems like just naturally a great time with it being a new year for us to refocus on what that reteaching looks like with our SOAR behaviors. And so both of our students have very specific ways that we go about that reteaching and what that looks like. It's not identical to what we did at the beginning of the year, but it might be a little bit more abbreviated, and the kids all know, so it tends to be a little bit more student-led eventually, rather than more teacher-oriented. This is an opportunity for our students to really stand up and say what they know and all of those types of things. So we have everything from, maybe skits that the kids can, and role playing that they can act out, to some poster making that can go up in the different areas and things like that, but more student generated, like I said, rather than teacher generated like it is at the beginning of the year. And then last but not least, looking at the academic piece is this is a time when we all start to go back through and we look at that grit process. And we've talked about this before, that we're looking at what interims look like for ourselves. We're done with our winter benchmark testing. So now we have 2 data points to look at. And so we can start to look at some of those and figure out, okay, and see where the growth is and where we need to continue to put forth a lot more effort as well.
Yeah, that's what Donna Squires and Denise Phelan at our school talking about is those benchmarks, what we're going to start talking about next year, January next year. already.
Yeah, and I think they're actually going to be talking
Mhm.
at the board. I think that they're going to be talking here in January, actually. So you're going to hear from our achievement specialists in January, which is really nice.
This is great. That's so clear. And I'm sure that bus drivers know now that they can say it and it's not them personally.
Yes,
This is the way it is. This is what's going to happen.
yes.
Yeah. The other thing I heard from parents too, a few of them that read it, that they liked that the driver's going to contact them first. Cause sometimes when we call, we're like, well, I don't know, but this is kind of what they said. But now having the driver talk to them and then supporting the drivers, cause we both have spaces in our buildings where they can come get the information and you can get support from us when they're talking to families on how to do that. So they're not left alone.
Right.
Is this something that goes in with our policies around the school bus protocol?
It could go in as a procedure.
I think that would be a great
Policy.
addition
Yeah.
in that section.
We do get, once in a while, we will get parents that'll want to see the video because all our
Uh-huh.
buses have cameras and we invite them to come in. They can either go to the co-op or they can come into the building and look at the tape with the administrator. We just don't burn copies and get them out there because we have other children that are in the picture.
Exactly.
But we also want to make sure that, the parents that do request that have the opportunity that we have to reinforce, this is why your child's in trouble. See them climbing over the seat, they're not being safe, or whatever the case may be. So I don't think I can recall in the 2.5 years that we've ever looked at a video with a parent and had a mistake. It just always proves out that, oh yeah, my kid did that. So.
Yeah.
And so I like the consequences, the infractions, meet with some kind of payment that has to be due. And I think Ms. Cook can appreciate that because it's similar to what we had at the shipyard. If you do something bad, you're going to get 3 days off without pay.
Right.
So this is conditioning those people that they have consequences.
Right. Right.
Can you tell me how these offenses are going to be logged?
So we both have access to a program called Swiss, and we log all disciplinary referrals into Swiss. And it's tracked, and then we both look at that data throughout the entire year. That data is given to our teachers to look at on, specific times throughout the year. And so if I was to pull up Amy off of there, I could pull up and see every single referral that had been given to her. So if I have a student that I think, hey, I think I remember seeing something coming through about the bus, because the drivers actually have a discipline referral form for us. And then that's logged into Swiss. So we can go, I think I remember seeing that, and then we can pull up their name onto Swiss and it will log, and it says in there every single referral that's been written from it.
That
So
will carry over year to year?
yes, it can carry over from year to year,
Not a
yes.
clean slate at the beginning?
No.
Okay, good.
No, well, I shouldn't say that. So,
We haven't had that conversation about fresh start
Yeah.
next school year.
yeah, so we always try to make sure that, it's good teaching and it's good practice for us to give brand new fresh starts to students every single year. There are always going to be circumstances, of which there are very few, I have to be honest about, that would say, no, you don't get a new start. We're talking about it putting kids in extreme danger or something to that effect that would cause us to, but even then, it's in good practice for us to go back through and say, okay, so maybe this student has learned, and so maybe they can go back with these stipulations or parameters. And so we would not be able to call ourselves great educators if we didn't believe that there was hope for students to change from the mistakes that they make and learn from that. Because that's what education is about, right? It's about learning and moving forward. We know that kids are going to make mistakes. Sometimes they make really small ones, and sometimes they make really, really big ones. And despite what those mistakes look like, we have to be able to say we've given students opportunities to go forward.
You have, so can we, let's say we have a fighter
Yeah,
and he gets warned about fighting.
Yeah.
He gets a 3-day suspension. He gets a week suspension.
Yeah.
He gets a month suspension, comes back, and then it's a month after that.
Mhm.
Comes back next year and he's fighting. Can you progress? Does it, do you have to follow that plan, or can you go, okay, you're step 4?
yeah. So with this, there's always the administrative discretion that is used, always. And with a situation like that, both Amy and I would look at a person like that and go, hey, we know that you can change and make a different decision, but we're going to put these parameters in this structure because we want to see you be successful. We would be remiss to just throw a person in if we know that they have a certain set of habits that they continue to do over and over again. If we continue to put that person in that same environment over and over again, I believe that the definition of that is what? Insanity to do the same thing. So we are both, and Amy knows more about even than I do as far as looking at boundaries and structure and things like that with her special education background and how to provide those accommodations for students to be successful. So she's definitely a person that I would rely on and looking and saying, hey, I have this kid who continuously is doing these same things. I want them to be successful. What could we create for them to move forward and to have a successful time? But ultimately, we've always said this too. Student safety is a #1 priority. So if we have a student who has repeatedly showed us over and over again that they are able to be unsafe, then those are the first discussions that we're going to be able to have. We have to have that.
So I have 2 things, a follow-up of Rick's. So is the information that is collated used in the community engagement sessions for truants?
You can request that if you would like to.
So I think it would be good to see that, because that also adds to, the trend that the individual is going. And I mean, if they're in front of the court should also know that,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I was also thinking that if you say to a student, you're off the bus for a week,
Yes.
then they may say, well, I can't get to school. And so that
Yes.
affects their attendance.
And I will tell you, in a majority of times, that's usually the very first thing a parent will say to us when we remove them. Well, I can't get them to school then. Right. And I will also tell you 9 times out of 10, they find a way to get their kids to
Right.
school. Yeah. So I'm just like, you know what? I feel very badly for you, but you have to understand that the expectation is that your student is safe on the bus and they have done such and such and such, which is an unsafe behavior on the bus. And the consequences for that are this. We will keep in contact with you via phone every day if we need to, Schoology, if they don't come to school, all of those different kinds of things. But I'm sorry, this is the consequence.
Okay, my second question was the acronym PBIS.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's a great question. Thank you. It is Positive Behavior and Intervention Supports. Is that correct? Yeah, I got that right. Yes. Yes. And it is part of, you guys have you heard the acronym MTSS? So MTSS is kind of like our overarching, everything that we do in school. PBIS is one of those components or one of those pillars that holds up MTSS.
And MTSS is multi-tiered systems of support.
Yes.
So it's all these different systems that we put in place for
Yes.
students to be successful. And really what PBIS is talking about, how are we giving kids positive affirmations. So it says if you're telling a kid, if you're giving them a reprimand, 1, then you need to do at least 4 or 5 positives after that 1 negative in a sense. So they're hearing more positives than the negative.
Which is why this year it has been such a push for our staff to send out as many positive informational phone calls, emails than we ever have before.
Yeah.
So that parents are always hearing positives along with any sort of negative comment that comes home as well.
Nice. Any questions or anything? Okay, thanks you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have business operations update.
Yeah, just a couple things. Jolene's not here tonight. She's under the weather, but if you look at the first page, general fund, LEA, the one thing I wanted to report on, just a couple things. If you look down at under if you look up at the top, first of all, the percent of resources for the end of November, we've just received about almost 25% of our resources. But if you go down to expenditures, you'll see that we've expended about 87.72% of the expenditures. Well, again, the reason is we've loaded in all of the staff costs for the year, all of our contracts for the year. So all of the staff pay under encumbrances. You can see that, under regular instruction, almost $4.9 million has already been encumbered. So we've accounted for all that till the end of August. So that's why you look at that discrepancy on the percent of revenue versus the percent of expenditures. Right now, at the end of November, our ending fund balance was a little under $1 million. But the good news is it pushed us up to 6.5%. So we're kind of inching up a little bit. And of course, we're continuing to watch all expenditures for the rest of the school year. And then you can look at capital projects fund. There really wasn't much movement from the last month in there. We have a projected ending fund balance of about $33,000. We did make our final payment on the district office. So the $181,000 was a final payment for that building. The debt service fund, again, not much movement in there. We have an ending fund balance of about 948. Again, we make our payments out of this fund. So we have our bond payments on the building that come out of this. And again, we have some bonds that we're paying for the Shelton district also. ASB, you can see the ending fund balance is about 8,400, and that's combined middle school and elementary. They started the year with quite a bit of money at a beginning fund balance of 45,000, but they've spent a few funds too. And again, ASB, remember, can only be spent on students. So
I got a quick question on that. So we authorized the elementary school to utilize some of the ASB funds.
Yes.
How they doing on that?
I don't think there's been much activity on elementary ASB that's come across my desk. Yeah. They have the ability to, and mostly it's around the yearbook, which will happen later in the spring. And then the transportation fund, we are scheduled through depreciation to be looking at purchasing 2 new buses within the next couple of years. They will probably not be electric just because of capacity, but we will make that decision with the co-op when the time comes. Not that we don't like electric buses, but as we continue to grow, those buses have less capacity than our diesel buses by about 10 students.
So transit is switching over primarily to propane.
To propane?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that's gonna happen with our school buses or not.
That's something that we contracted with the bus, they have the ability to do it, the bus garage, so.
One of the things that I've talked to Jolene and Lynn both about is in January, I think I'll give you access to 1 month of all expenditures, which comes out about a 70-page document that has every purchase that we've made. So you could look, and ones that I've looked at, they're anywhere from 60 to 75 pages, depending on the month. But you can actually take a look at every single line item and budget code on what was expended for that month. We won't print it out because it's a lot of paper if we make, 6 copies times 70, but we'll give at least next month have access to the December. And that'll be less because it's a shorter month,
month.
but it'll give you an idea of what the account, the electronic will just send to you. But it'll give you an idea of what the business office does each month to reconcile all of our expenditures and all the budget codes that.
Are you able to take budget questions?
Yeah.
So the newspaper that talks about Shelton School District just realizing they have a huge deficit, their budget. And when you talked about expenses for our kids, they can't change that mid-year, can they?
No.
Okay, so they can't decide, oh my God, we're short, let's charge more? Okay. Thank you.
Not mid-year. Yeah. Okay, any business questions? All right, we'll move right on to the superintendent report.
Just a couple of things. You have a short superintendent report in front of you with some information. Just a couple of things I want to hit on. The last concert of the year, tomorrow night, grades 4 and 5 over at the elementary school, 6 o'clock. The first 2 concerts have been packed. Remember that very first year, we did them all on one night and it was one illegal because we were so at capacity, but even breaking it down to K1, then we did 2, 3, then we did 2, 3, and now we're doing 4, 5 the last couple Wednesdays. It's built full house. I mean, and so if you get a chance, it takes longer to set up and tear down than it does for the whole concert, but they are good. And our music teacher, Deanna, she does such a great job over there. I mean, it's just amazing.
And you're doing it over
At the elementary school in the Commons, yeah, 6 o'clock tomorrow. I would recommend you get here a little early if you want a seat. Otherwise, you can come stand with me or with Amy wherever we end up at. No, we don't. It's festival seating. Tomorrow's also the day of giving, so I think early release tomorrow. So they'll be in here setting up probably a little after 2 o'clock, and I think it goes like 4 to 7, 8. Somewhere.
There's boxes tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then the 19th is the day of giving.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow's
Yeah,
Wednesday, yeah. So they're putting all the boxes together.
that's right. And then
Putting
Thursday,
all of that together, and then Thursday is when they.
come in. Yeah, Thursday's when they come in. Okay.
So if we have perishable items to donate, should we wait and bring those in on Thursday then, due to like fridge capacity?
No, I think you can bring them in tomorrow. That way they have an idea of what's here.
Okay, and they'll have room to store it. That was
Just
my
put
only
'em in.
concern.
Put them in the fridge.
Okay, okay, cool.
And then the last thing is part of our rural small modernization grant. One of the things that we were doing was in cameras at the elementary school, increasing the capacity and replacing some. So the company that won the bid will be doing that over winter break. So Lloyd has scheduled them to come in. They're even scheduled to work on December 24th, which Lloyd thought was a little odd, but I'm sure they'll knock off early. But they'll be there 3 days next week and 3 days after Christmas, and should have all those cameras done and up and operating. And then we met last week with Apollo on the rest of the projects and with the state who oversees those projects. So we're currently scheduling the lighting project in the springtime, and then the HVAC will take place late spring through the summer. So, yeah, we're making progress. Once we get those projects done at the elementary school, we will have hopefully consistent cooling and heating in all the rooms, and we won't have issues of putting things back together. We'll have a brand new HVAC system that should last us a good 50 years. And the LED lighting also will make a difference.
Any questions or comments about that? Okay, up next we have discussion and action items. We have one information topic and then one action item. So the first is the artificial intelligence, AI, the new electricity, is that the one that you sent out, right? The AI video?
No, that was different.
Oh, okay.
Did you like it though?
I did, yeah, good. really
Salcon,
cool.
yeah, pretty informative.
So this one, what's this one about?
Joel's presentation.
Oh,
Stop letting me share my screen. It's gonna be pretty disappointing. Go for it.
No. Hey, while Joel's doing that, do you mind if I ask a question to Trish?
Well, that's up to you.
Miss Coral,
Yes.
I said that I would get her in contact with one of the
Yes.
employees from the shipyard
Yes.
about women in employment, and I forget exactly what the whole topic was, but did she ever get hold of Miss Cushy?
I don't know that, but I wouldn't hesitate to say that when the new year comes, that I think that'll be something that she looks at. I know that all of the teachers have been trying to just figure out how to make it through. We had, like I said, all of our benchmark testing and things like that that we've been focusing on. So I know that she wants to do that. So I would expect in January that that would be something she'll follow up
I
on.
know she was pretty excited about helping because she's our NAPSI engineering
Yes.
rep, so,
Definitely.
it's like, goes right up to Washington.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
all set.
We're ready? Okay, so I'm going to apologize in advance because there's a lot of information on this presentation. So yeah, get comfortable. The reason why we're doing this is that after talking with Jeff and actually quite a few people about our current procedure for AI, we realized that we needed to update it significantly. And with the help of Edmonds School District, we were able to make some significant changes. And this is kind of an outline of how we're thinking about artificial intelligence as it relates to students and teachers. So, if I can make it go. A couple of quotes here. First, AI is the new electricity. It will have as much impact on our lives as the advent of electricity. Lots of experts believe that. Lots of people believe that. And I love this quote: "You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone who knows AI." And then, what is AI? For those, that's very small. Sorry about that. There are several types of AI, but the two main ones are reactive AI and limited memory AI. And artificial intelligence, in like its infancy, used huge amounts of processing power to make really fast decisions for people that were doing things like statistics. The new generations of AI do go way beyond that. The model that is making the most impact right now is part of the limited memory generation, and it is called generative AI. And that's, all of you have obviously heard of GPT and Gemini and all these. Those are generative AI systems. And what they do is they use GPUs, which are graphical processing units, to interact with human designed. These are not designed by, computers. These are human designed models, huge data sets to then create new content. And it takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of, they actually are modeling these things on the human brain. So they're actually called neural networks. So these networks of GPUs do incredible amounts of processing, and through that, using models made by human beings, they create the content. The great thing about them, or you could say it's a scary thing also, is that not only are they creating new content, but every time they create new content based upon these large language models or other models that they're using, they learn from it. So they've created new content that's learning. They're actually learning.
You an example, just a common example that we see going on right now.
A really common, the one that I guess is the easiest for us to digest is, for instance, a picture. So if you go into one of the generative AI engines and you say, I want a picture of a person riding a bicycle up Mount Everest. Now, obviously, that's going to be really hard because there's no roads up there, but it can generate something, new content based upon all the content of the internet, basically, and give you something.
An existing photograph, not a photograph that.
No, it makes it. It will take the models of what you say a bicycle rider, it goes on and looks at all the bicycle riders on the internet, and it creates something from that. And then it goes all the pictures of Mount Everest and all the possible ways that you could ride a bicycle up Mount Everest, and it will generate something for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's new content.
An app on my phone, and if I want to see a cross between an elephant and an alligator,
It'll do it.
it does it, yeah.
Yes.
So, just so that I understand kind of the examples that you were talking about, there's commercials everywhere, right, for the phone that you just have a conversation with, and it's all AI. Which version of that what type of AI would you refer to that?
That actually probably has a little bit of both.
Okay.
But most of the time, most of the cool thing about generative AI is that it really works well for creativity, for things that are, you're creating something new, and it works for statistics, but it's really what its
Right.
intent is. So probably if you have a phone that's using AI, it's generative AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for assistance, generative AI works for virtual assistants, for content creation, for text summarization, amazing, data analysis, amazing, product design, software development, and fraud detection. Fraud detection has become AI has transformed fraud detection. So, oops, I just skipped a whole bunch of slides. Okay, so I got some of these, a couple of them are from, these are all from Washington-based organizations dealing with education. So AI is online and in-store shopping, robotic tractors, precision agriculture, warehouse fulfillment, credit card fraud protection, insurance rates, NASA images from space, text-to-speech, foreign language translation, mapping, and navigation. AI is not alive. It's not smarter than us. It isn't killer robots. It isn't only for geniuses. It isn't only for people in techie cities, and always physical. It is inside software and phone apps, and it's not going to be. This is from OSPI. Generative AI is a means to augment teaching and learning, already embedded, or I'll do the for and against. It is not a replacement for student development. It is already embedded into many technologies, as is AI more broadly speaking. It is not something that can plausibly be avoided or turned off. It is permeated with flaws such as algorithmic bias that must be considered when utilized. It is not a source of unquestionable factual information. It is a product of companies led by teams of humans with their own values, agendas, limitations, biases, and organizational needs. It is not produced in a vacuum free of societal influence. It is an algorithm that enables users to generate new content based on a pre-trained large language model. It is not a sentient being with untethered superhuman capabilities. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this one just because this will take a while anyway. So this is OSPI. I'm sorry that's so small. Maybe I can change my.
Joel, would you be willing to share your PowerPoint with us?
Yes,
As an email?
yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
OSPI would like it's got their guidance for us is that AI is human-centered. We use it as a human-centered tool. It prioritizes needs and abilities and the experiences of students and educators and administrators. An educational leader can support a human-centered learning environment by considering the following: developing students' AI literacy by helping them understand the concepts, applications, and implications of AI in various domains and empowering them to use AI as a tool for learning and problem solving. Very important for when considering to use AI in the classroom. ensuring ethical, equitable, and safe use of AI by protecting the privacy and security of data, addressing potential biases and harms, and promoting digital citizenship and responsibility. That one kind of speaks for itself. Providing well, actually, let me go back on that. One thing that Lynn and I were talking about earlier, and I've talked about it with lots of people, is that if we lag behind this kind of revolution in learning, we're putting our students at a disadvantage. And the longer we wait, the more significant that disadvantage becomes. So I think it's really important that we're having this conversation and that we start getting our students with hands-on with AI at an appropriate level. And with guidance. So, providing professional development and support for educators, that's a no-brainer. Applying human-centered design principles to development and implementation of AI solutions involving stakeholders in the design process, testing and iterating the solutions, and evaluating the impact and outcomes. And then aligning AI solutions with the best practices and principles of learning. And I can tell you that it does that almost on its own. Tricia has been using it, almost on a daily basis. Jeff and I've used it a lot recently, especially with building the cybersecurity program. And then Jeff has, messed around with it a lot, just showing the potential of what it can do for a teacher. That's another thing from OSPI that kind of gives you what we're looking for here. And I'm not just going to read through this just because I can just have a conversation with you. The thing that using AI in teaching allows a level of specificity for a student that you will never get with the textbook. You can input, I want 6th grade student at a 6th grade level, a fraction lesson on the Washington State standards at a certain level of ability. And it will output something for you within seconds. And you can then take that output and make it even more specific for an individualized student. So you are differentiating a lesson on the fly in less than 5 minutes. You can come up with an absolutely beautiful lesson for an individual student on fractions at 6th grade level that meets the standards and for their level of learning at that moment. And and it's just amazing what you can do with that. That's the power of this for a teacher. So
totally dependent upon skills of the teacher who understands AI.
exactly, yeah, that is.
So
absolutely correct.
if we first aren't the ones to get the learning, all of us, you can't produce that lesson because it's your input that determines what the output is.
Oh my gosh, yes, I have run into that a lot. Yes.
How well is it being received within the staff? I mean, are people really embracing it, or are we having I'm still old school?
It's unknown. So it was introduced to me last year. Joel had brought it up. I know that Jeff was bringing it up, and I hadn't messed with it quite at that point in time. And then Deputy Matt actually had been using it quite a bit. And he came and showed me, he's like, guess what I did with ChatGPT today? I'm like, what? He goes, oh, I was running late for a donut party for kindergarten. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and I forgot the book. So on my way here, I asked ChatGPT to create a story. And I told him all the stuff I wanted to have in there, Deputy Matt, and I told him the whole premise of the story. And could you write a story for me to be able to tell kindergartners? And I have this output, and it wrote an entire story for him that he could share with the kindergartners and, all that kind of stuff. So it got me interested in kind of learning. And then we started using this program called Magic
School.
Thank you, Magic School, because we were trying to find lessons that would help our multilingual learners.
Oh.
And, because we don't have, that translation piece, and we are having more and more multilingual learners. And so we were working specifically last year with Abby Ashcraft and like our science and our history teachers to create lessons based off of what we were learning and using it to translate and then create the lessons using Magic School, which is AI as well. Is that correct? Yeah, I have not used Magic School, so I can't speak to that. I started using that when somebody came and asked me for a letter of reference. That was the first time that I truly had used ChatGPT, and that's what I knew. And I put into ChatGPT, and I was kind of really formal how I talked. And, was very like, I wanted to do this type of thing. And then recognized very quickly that it didn't matter how I spoke to ChatGPT. It would format for me however I needed it. So then I realized I'm just going to try and use this because we have to write narratives for our evaluations at the very end of the year. We have to write a summative paragraph. And I'm not joking when I say you could spend a couple hours on each one of those. Well, when you're doing that for 25 staff members, it's a significant amount of time, but it was just as easy for me to pick my phone, which has ChatGPT, and go into a very lengthy narrative into ChatGPT, saying all of the things that I had seen and how it connected with all of these different criterion for TPEP. And then ChatGPT wrote a beautiful summary for me. And so I was able to share that with all of my staff and say, look at what I did in ChatGPT. Read the narrative that I gave it, as unpretty as it was, and look at how it wrote this. And they were pretty astonished by how it did that. So I wanted them to feel comfortable in the fact that I wasn't allowing ChatGPT to make any decisions. I was still writing down everything that I had seen. I didn't ask ChatGPT, AI to make up anything at all. I was simply asking it to fine tune how I would actually write it. So that really showed me, oh my word, look at how much time this can save me, because I'm a great writer. I already know that. I taught English for multiple years. I have that skill already, so I'm not trying to usurp that skill with anything. What I'm trying to do is work smarter, and this allowed me to work much smarter in that capacity.
So I think this is great, but can you use it to say ChatGPT, develop a marketing plan so I can roll it out in my school and some way to measure it, and then maybe in your professional development days have that so that each individual has maybe a lesson plan that helps them.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But it all depends on the prompting.
Yeah.
And as you do initial prompting, you'll get a response, and
Right.
then you can read the response and say, well, I need something more specific. Well, you need then to go to the prompt and identify some more specificity, and then go back, and you can even take that prompt and ask them to write it as if you were a business teacher, or write it in the language of an administrator, or write it in the language of a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And if you prompt it, you're going to see those different ways of writing with that prompt. And again, in a matter of seconds.
So that's what I'm trying to say is if you want this and you want it to be ingrained in our youth, which I think you're right, you have to be on it. So you need to empower the program to help you figure out what's the best way to move forward, because we're talking about it. Each individual is dabbling in it. I haven't even touched it. But, my mind's thinking about, okay, how can they develop new batteries, and fusion reactors and all of these cool things
That's a
that, I
completely
think
different level.
gets us in good places.
And they found that the one thing there's the limitations of it are easy to find when you start talking about things like fusion, right? Because the large estimates that we have are based on our knowledge as human beings. So when we don't quite know something yet,
It can't know
it
more.
doesn't know much more,
Yeah.
but it can give you incredibly cool ideas on maybe how to solve that.
Right.
So
So I think you guys are right at the tip of the spear as far as getting this ingrained in this.
What I see in that is that it's going to have huge transformation in education, and especially for old dogs who were taught, you know, I think back, I was taught how to parse a sentence, you know, that's long gone, that whole concept of putting, because it's like giant spell check. So it's not, you know, we're not going to have those long division, write it all out kinds of skills. It's going to be shortcutted, and it's going to be learning about prompts.
yeah,
It's all going to be about prompts.
I like hearing the successful parts of it. And I don't want to be a downer, but is there any concern about students?
Oh, yeah.
who get to write their reports, and then would that be
Yeah,
considered
yeah.
plagiarism, which is something I went through when I was in school?
Yeah.
And how, like, how do you recognize that and make sure students are being original, writing their reports or whatever they're doing versus taking the AI that we're teaching them and now having their work done for them?
yeah. So since the advent of cheating,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Humans have been doing that for each other for
Forever.
ages.
Yeah.
Now, and even with, you know, just the internet in general, this is just the next
Yeah.
evolution on that scale, right? You know, yeah, it seems like it's a huge jump, and it is. The cool thing about AI is that it also recognizes itself. It's, you know, it can recognize its own output, right? And we also, as I was talking to Len earlier, we also need to maybe shift a little bit on what we think cheating is.
Yeah.
When it comes to writing, creating, that kind of stuff, because the prompt, the input is really the source.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the source of truth for AI. So it's really hard to cheat that.
Yeah.
So if a kid has an idea and it's a good idea and they want it written, and let's say that they are a fifth grader who maybe doesn't have the best hand-eye coordination.
Hmm.
But they have this great idea. They can input that in using their voice to an AI, generative AI system, and it will type it for them. Then the cool thing is see if it's taught correctly, the kid will go, oh, okay, AI generated this. Now I need to edit it. I need to go through it. I need to look at it to make sure it sounds like me. Because to be honest, it is still fairly easy, even with some of the most beautiful, like some of the best generated prompts. You can still kind of tell.
It's no different than going to, when I was younger, an encyclopedia, and
Exactly.
grabbing a
Yeah.
paragraph
Right.
and then writing it in my own words
Yeah.
to answer a homework
And
question.
you could
Even
still,
when you say, write this like a fifth grader, nah.
yeah.
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 What a gift for a special ed student, though.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so
Oh,
I
my
liked
goodness.
your comment about, retraining our minds to, categorize what cheating is.
Yeah.
So if a kid is creative and he has the initial thought,
Yep.
then is that cheating? No, it's using his brain,
Yeah.
critical thinking,
Yep.
to establish a connection with the computer
Yeah.
that allows creativity to come out.
And there's a lot of really strong arguments that say that are pretty, I mean, they're very strong, that this peer to AI peer interaction is actually going to build critical thinking even better than
Peer-to-peer.
our current model of building critical thinking.
Right.
Because the interaction is so instantaneous.
Mhm.
So you're immediately getting feedback. And then that, you know, they're building those critical thinking skills just immediately. And I mean, we think about it, I mean, all of you have written papers, right? And how laborious the actual writing process is, when really what you wanted to do is get your point across, but you had to type it. So if you took out that, Imagine the depth of a paper that a fifth grader could write if they didn't have to type it. If they could just think about it, think about the ideas, not have to physically go through and type it.
It's really, it seems to me, it would be a transformation for the field of education, because I was thinking about, comment about, cheating in the paper, where the focus has been on the originality of the person who wrote the sentence in the paragraph, the 5-part paragraph, and all that. That will become way less important than the content and the creativity, which are the kinds of things that really a teacher wants to focus on, and they have to build the bones first, and a lot of kids build the bones, so they never get to that point of being able to express themselves in a higher level format.
Can I respond to that too as an English teacher? So I agree with both of you in that aspect too, because that is obviously my first thing is, and I was talking to one of our big tech people here, Brenda Roth, who espouses all forms of technology. And she's like, I don't want it to take away from my writing. I don't want it to take away from my creativity. And so we really had some good conversations about that. One of the things that I think about is it forces an educator to again go back to what that power standard is. What is it that I'm assessing a student for? If I am asking a student to create a 5-paragraph essay or 3-paragraph essay, what am I assessing them for? Is it the content? Is it the conventions? What am I looking for, and what is it that I'm going to be focusing on? Because you're right, if it's just content, then we're open for just about anything, right? If I'm looking for specific conventions, there might be different ways that I can assess that rather than a 5-page essay. So it really is getting down to the heart of what is it that I'm looking to grade and get, find knowledge to seek mastery from my students, and how does AI fit or not fit into that picture? If I'm really wanting to know what a student has memorized, that's a different expectation than create a plan to do whatever, because then AI is going to help a student only think bigger and better and more grandeur than simply memorization and so on and so forth. And one more thing, Jill, I just want to expand upon with that is that, for example, I was creating today with AI sort of some of the PBIS stuff that we're going to be doing when we come back in January. And I had to sit through and I would read through what it came up with, and then I was constantly looking to refine it. How do I go back and refine it? This sounds great. And I would talk to, this sounds great, but this is actually what I need. Please refine it, or please change it to meet this. Then they would do it. Actually, I really like this part, so generate more of this. So continuously using those critical thinking skills as I interact with it to create a product that I wanted and needed, because it didn't do that right at the very beginning. It gave me a good start, but the creativity piece and the critical thinking piece that I had to do to interact, to master what it was that I wanted it to come out with, required a very deep level of thinking and interacting on my behalf that I would not have been able to do had I created that product on my own. So it gave me the base already. I knew what I wanted. I set that into it, and it created a base model for me. And then I built on top of that. So what I didn't have to do was create the base model. I was able to refine everything and bring it to what I wanted. And that's the lovely thing. Just like you're able to do, let's just say you're going through the policies for board policies. If you were to upload your board policy into AI, along with the RCWs, along with any new literature that has come out from OSPI, and you put that all, and you would say, could you please update our current board policy and create a standard template that we can begin to work off of? It would generate a board policy for you to start with. And then you could look at that board policy that was based on all of the documentation that you uploaded to it. And then you would have all of that. Instead of each one of you having to read I think it's good for you to do that anyways, but to have to generate after you've read and done all of this timely study on it, it actually would do some of that for you so that you could spend the time on actually discussing what that policy looked like, how it affects our community, and what needs to be refined and changed or altered about that as well. So just again, it's not about creating it and leaving it as is. It's about the creation of the base of it and then working with AI to refine it and make it into something that you need it to be that fits whatever it is that you're looking for. I'm so sorry.
No, you're just fine.
So along those lines, okay, if I'm gonna write an email, it's an anticipatory thing that suggests what my next word might be in an email, right? I mean, we're talking simple things like a text message or an email, and it's not telling me what to write, it's suggesting, okay? But if you ask for a book report on To Kill a Mockingbird, and I asked for a book report on To Kill a Mockingbird, it's going to tell us the same thing,
No,
okay? Except
No,
it's gonna be written,
no,
it's gonna be written, it's gonna be written
it's gonna have
differently.
written
based-
differently, but
Now, we're putting in
characters don't
information
change,
about
plot doesn't change.
ourselves. We have been for years. Everything we buy goes into AI.
Mhm.
It knows our habits. It
Yep.
knows our likes and our dislikes. My wife and I can talk about our trip to Cancun without, not even around our cell phone. And then all of a sudden we're getting advertisements for a trip to Cancun, right?
Yep.
Well, you stay at our hotel. So, but what I don't like about the process, it's great to make it easier or faster to write, but not when you're asking it for an algorithm opinion, right? Somebody wrote in their opinion of that book report, or many people did, and it's piecing them all together. But if you're asking a kid to write a book report, he's going to do it the easiest way he possibly can. And it might read differently than the other kids, but it's giving them, it's not allowing them to pull out their opinions or their artistic ability in writing it. That's my concern.
So what I would say with that is that as an English teacher, I would ask to see the prompts that they gave us. So if a student is only going to say, I need a book report and I think that Scout was a really cool character and I think that she needed to grow up, or something like that, I would have that be a piece of what I was saying. If I was to say use AI to do this, I would say I want to see what the prompts look like. But I would also be very specific in saying, I would like you to use AI to create a paragraph based on character development. So in order to do that, you're going to need to input 4 specific characteristics of Scout. And you're also going to need to input how Scout responded in these particular situations. That's your prompt that you're going to put in AI. And I want you to see what it comes up with. So as a teacher, I'm going to say, I want you to do this, but I'm going to direct you exactly on how I want you to do it. Now, obviously in high school, that might look a little different, but in middle school, if I'm teaching kids how to use AI, I'm going to direct them specifically how to use what that looks like. And then we're going to go from there. And then I might say, also tell AI not to put any punctuation in it, because I'm going to have you break that paragraph out and I want you to punctuate the paragraph itself.
So again, what I see is you as a teacher. It's about it's no longer the teacher, the 8th grade teacher says, we're going to write book reports on the book you read. And everybody's going to write a book report. Now it's tailoring, as you said, tailoring the assignment where they learn how to use it. So out of it comes not only what you learn about the book, but you also are teaching in the process of using AI as a tool.
Yeah.
I think effective use of it can actually enhance teaching significantly.
Yeah, make it a lot more
because
interesting.
You're going from write a book report to what Trisha said, where you're literally making them, they have to read the book
Right,
because
right.
the level of specificity.
Yeah.
Kind of circles back around to my point is rolling this out and marketing it so that people have that teaching, has that critical thinking part to say, these are the parameters that I'm going to work within my students. And that interaction and feedback is what I expect back.
So just thinking about what you all are thinking, the bad of AI, obviously, is increasing and or creating inequitable learning environments. And that's what we're trying to right now prevent. Unauthorized access to protected user information and unauthorized data collection, that's a big one, but that is based upon we can help to work with that based upon the model or the AI that we use, especially for students, because we know they're mischievous. Everybody is. Right?
Like Siri, don't listen to what I say.
Exactly. Perpetuating institutional and systemic bias, that's a big one for the large language models, and we have to recognize that when we're using an AI. We have to have some thought about, hey, is this really the case, or is this something that is a bias built into it? And then plagiarism, obviously academia, that's a big one. And then over-relying on technology and undermining the importance of human intelligence on education. I think there's going to be a shift in that part because AI for education, if used correctly, just improves efficiency. And efficiency in education is really hard to attain because of the model that we use. So anything that improves that efficiency is going to help our students. Yeah, I mean, we kind of already went through this. Tricia kind of gave examples already. There is a long list of these things, these guiding principles. This is from Seattle school districts and OSPI. I'm not going to read them all to you, but basically what they say is that it has to be student-centered. We have to think about the biases. We have to be transparent in our use. It has to be transparent to the students. It has to be explicit in our use. So when you are saying that you want to, that you're going to tell them to use AI, and if you don't tell them, then you're not going to use it. And all these things, well, I'll just make sure you get this so you can see. And these are all from Seattle School District. This is a cool thing from OSPI, and it kind of shows a gradual use, kind of the graduation of using it to where you get to level 5, which is AI as a co-creator, which would be more high school. Obviously, there would be some of that also in middle school, and probably to a limited extent in elementary school. But each one of these levels kind of shows how AI can assist a student or a teacher appropriately. And then I think an interesting thing is that teaching students to use artificial intelligence is crucial for preparing them. We already know that. But we need to also realize that most of them have already started using it. So if we can give them some guidance and some tools that are appropriate for them to use at school, then we might be able to, make an impact on how they use it. And then elementary students, that's ChatGPT is for 13 years and older. So we have to find something that has appropriate guardrails for students that are younger than that. And luckily there are things. And then we as administrators and as teachers need to make sure that we adhere to those, to using those tools at an appropriate level for the students. And in middle school, well, you can read that on your own. Great thing is, like we've already said, students with unique needs, students with that are ELL or that have special needs, AI can be transformational, like you said. I mean, it can, a kid who has limited dexterity can participate in writing an essay just like everybody else. It empowers them, it empowers kids. And the immediate translation is so much better than Google Translate. You can't even, it's out of this world translation. Because Google Translate doesn't take into account the gender of the kid, doesn't take into account where they're at, like if you say Spanish, well, that could be hundreds of different
Dialects.
languages. So you can input specific languages into an AI model and it will translate it into that specific language, even down to regions. So Magic School AI is the one that I would like for us to consider rolling out to kids. And it is what Seattle School District is using and what some of the Kitsap Peninsula school districts are using. It has tools on top of tools on top of tools for not only for teachers, but for administrators and for students. And I'll give you a little preview of what it looks like. This is the student side. Can't really see it with the way that the screen is, but it has things like chat with the doc, which is what Tricia was talking about before, where you take your document that you've written, you upload it into the chat bot, and you ask it questions about your document. And it will give you specific, immediate responses about what you just wrote. That's pretty powerful for kids. There's a summarizing AI. There is all sorts of, the one that I love is that based upon the writings of an author who could be completely dead, maybe for hundreds of years, you can have a conversation with that author. So for instance, if you wanted to talk to Mark Twain, you can have a virtual conversation with Mark Twain based upon his writing and his biography and what other people have talked about. So that's pretty powerful. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing for kids to be able to do. And then there's a SAT practice for English language. You can, things like that. And then Khan Academy is also going to be putting out a AI bot, basically, and it's focused on science, focused on math, so it's specifically tailored for those subjects. And I think that even the free version for us would be great for kids to be able to use. So you've been great about asking questions and being patient, but does anybody have any final questions? I had to throw the matrix on there just because.
Are you okay with questions?
Yeah.
Do you have any parents who are going to say, not my kid, I don't trust AI?
I mean, we've had parents say no Chromebooks, so we probably will, yeah. Yeah.
So is there something, I mean, I guess you guys have figured it out, but
Yeah.
are we educating them in some capacity so they know it's coming and they're smart that we just did here?
We will, yeah, we'll have to. It's our responsibility to make sure that our community knows what we're allowing their kids to be,
That's why I said probably some form of a marketing plan
Yeah.
to roll it out so people understand it instead of, are scared of it, Sue,
Yeah.
you know, I mean.
I think the other thing,
Sometimes great.
I think the other thing too is that this is not going to be curriculum only. I mean, we're not going to say, get rid of math, English, science, textbooks, curriculum, and we're going to focus on AI. It's a tool, just like technology became a tool 20 years ago, just like cell phones became a tool. So I think we look at it from the standpoint that this is one more iteration in the 22nd century that we will be now using to enhance students' ability to learn.
I'll be curious. We all know what test scores look like right now. And we know what it was 10 years ago. We look 10 years in the future. And has AI improved the test scores of our 5th grade students? Right?
Yeah. I think we'll have
That's what will tell us if this works.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, that'll have to be a question that we'll ask, in the next couple of years, because right now the kids really don't use it
Right.
at all. And so I don't think we know the impact of what that'll look like.
And what the correlation might be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you'd have to have some kind of a measurement, in order to understand. So building that matrix so that you do get some kind of feedback and know what direction you need to.
There's a lot of kids, I'm speaking of experience, that are my daughter and my son's generation who absolutely refuse to use it.
Oh, who refused to use it?
Yes. Yeah, to them, it is cheating.
Yeah.
And in more sense of the word than cheating.
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter how well I.
Morally wrong, morally wrong.
Yeah, I would say, my daughter's kind of moving towards it a little bit because she sees the value of it. And my son is going to be in computer science, so he's going to have to do, but there is still, even in younger kids, in that kind of, there's a resistance to it because it's a little scary.
Yeah.
What's the unknown, like anything else.
It is.
I have a question. When you're talking about you putting your document in, what are you using? Are you putting it into a phone? I can't picture the link between,
Well, when I'm looking
see,
at,
I don't know the program, so
yeah, so when I'm looking at ChatGPT, there's a little message.
say,
box.
but is it like,
Yeah.
is it on your phone? I don't,
It's like when you text, there's a box on your phone and you start typing the letters to text and then hit send. On ChatGPT, there's the same thing. There's a little box
so is it an app that's
Yeah.
on your phone? I mean, I don't,
Yeah, you can put it on your phone.
Yes,
And
I
then
know.
you just type in
and
whatever you want.
it's chat,
GPT.
CPT,
G.
Break it up.
chat.
Sure.
I just want to,
Happy to bring up.
So Susie, I have
GPT.
two. I have my personal one and then I have a school one, right? One's with my personal account and one is my school account. And my brother actually is an events manager and he is currently, his new job role is to teach people about Amazon, the Amazon assistant. And so that's his whole, he goes all over the country, sets up conventions, and that's his whole role is to teach people how to use the assistant, the virtual assistant. And he talks about it. So I would, this is the easiest way, he talks about picking a recipe. Pick a recipe and ask it to create a recipe for you for something. And then he takes them down the line. And then he's like, okay, now that you have the recipe for a Caesar salad, now ask it to create a whole meal around that Caesar salad. Now, ask it-
For 35 people.
yeah, for a certain amount of people.
Yep.
Now I want to create an entire menu for my week of 5 dinners. And I want to have Caesar salad 2 times a week. I want you to create a shopping list for me. But actually, I want all of that to be gluten. And I also only want to have meat on 3 of the nights. And I want the other 2 nights to be protein from vegetable sources.
Yeah.
Tell it to do all of that and it will do that for you. And it really just, it's getting to know you and your preferences, but it will do all of that. And you can walk away with a grocery list and your whole entire menu planned out for the entire week, including you can have it write down all of the recipes for you if you wanted.
In about 1 minute.
So,
Yeah.
About
With all those prompts.
so getting to know you, the first week you do it, it might be one way, but
Yeah.
after, and now you're asking for maybe some little different things.
Yeah.
It's going to adapt to you.
Yeah,
And then as it learns you better,
Yeah.
it'll get you down like a T and
Yeah.
you won't even have to say much.
no, and then here's the scary part. After you've used it for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, tell it to say something about you that you might not know. And it will be scarily accurate based off of all of the information that you've inputted. But I will tell you what it knows about me on my work. ChatGPT is different than what it knows about me on my personal ChatGPT. My personal ChatGPT is about, things I'm doing for my family, create a vacation, create, all that kind of stuff. Everything in my work one is about
Work.
obviously work. And so it's interesting that I can have 2 separate ChatGPTs and it has 2 different flavors of who I am.
2 different people.
Yeah.
well, and our students, I mean, like the elementary students and I would imagine in the middle school too, they're using it already in a sense that like, we have the math programs, right? That, okay, you're at this level. We're going to present you these other things based on where you're at now. That's already AI. It's just not on this level. Like, so it's just taking that opportunity to present the information that is necessary for that child. And it's customizing it already. We're already doing it. It's just not called ChatGPT and AI.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've been affected, our existence has been affected by machine learning for many years. And now machine learning has gone to generative AI creating content. So, I mean, we're just progressing.
Joel, you mentioned in the beginning, there were two kinds,
Yeah.
and we're talking about generative. Tell me a little bit about the other one.
The other kind is basically it uses more of a mathematical process than,
And it's
I mean, they all use math.
What is it?
Its purpose is to do statistics,
Okay.
to do prediction, like weather predictions.
Mhm.
Although the generative ones are becoming kind of taking over for weather now, but that was the old use of AI, was that it was
Analysis.
predictive, like way better than a human could do. Statistical, way better than you.
So this would be somebody working on their PhD and they were trying to get their stats all together for their.
Or storm, like the storm prediction modeling, those types of things. They use that for just AI for years for that.
I know when I went to my military reunion, they were showing some of the things they're doing. And this one kid was modeling shape charges for breaching like heavily reinforced concrete.
Yeah.
And I was going, how
Those,
did you come up with that?
those are
You've got
the
a
AI
computer.
models that the generative one is better at, because the regular statistical kind of mathematical AI doesn't think creatively. It thinks,
Black and white.
yeah, it's like yes or no, but it does it in a huge, capacity. Whereas the generative ones are like, well, it could do this if you place it here.
Yeah, he took existing plastics and then had a 3D printer and printed out the shape charge and then just taped the plastic explosive to it.
Yeah,
It was like, really?
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So you mentioned that you were interested in magic school. So is that a thing where we'll be hearing more about this in the next coming months as far as cost and use and the whole process,
Well-
like Robert was talking about, for like a marketing thing and all that kind of stuff?
I think we're gonna start with the free version because it is free to all kids and teachers. And then eventually, hopefully, at some point, we'll have resources to get the paid version. And the paid version of Magic School is way cheaper than ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those.
You subscribe to it?
You can. And all it does is it has the same kind of feature set where you can save it builds your database. Whereas the free one is more episodic. So, but yes, I will build a thing for the Magic School, and then definitely we'll start doing some community outreach for what we're gonna do.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
Sweet. Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Are there any other questions?
Lots of them.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, so up next, we have the second reading of policy 6802 for the cybersecurity practices. Has anything changed since the first reading?
No.
Nothing's changed. Are there any questions or comments?
I move that we accept the Pioneer School District Cybersecurity Action Plan, policy 6802, in section 6,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Up next is board share. Do we have anything for the board share?
I want to make one comment on this. So the risk cube in there, that's pretty standard in like industrial, and if using that in this,
The risk assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way it was set up too. Easy to follow. Okay,
So on the question next, our next board meeting is in January, and that's our,
Our set of officers, organization.
right. That's what I'm
organizational
trying to get at. It was the organizational
Organizational
meeting, right? So
Yeah.
we'll have
We'll have a study session
study session first,
second Tuesday, and then, but the board meeting is the organizational,
right?
part of it's the organizational piece. Elect a president, vice president, chair.
okay. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Anything else for board share? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is it. Thank you, guys.